This is episode 104 of Decoding Fox News, and I'm your host, Juliette Jeske. Each week I watch and analyze a whole heck of a lot of Fox News and then break it down. I watch all the Fox News you'd never want to. Let's get into it. Fox News, Jacked Up Joe, MAGA really is deplorable.
I might call him Jacked Up Joe. Biden's address was literally filled up with jacked up Joe screaming lie after lie. Clearly, jacked up Joe Biden tonight, very angry, very jacked up, you might say, maybe charitably over-caffeinated would be a way to put it. Will this angry, jacked up Joe Biden, hyped up Joe Biden, hyper-partisan Joe Biden? So what was your reaction to jacked up, angry, bitterly partisan Joe Biden tonight?
And they jacked him up, as you said, to get him ready for it. He's still not good enough for it.
Nothing but praise on jacked up Joe Biden's State of the Union address. Now, jacked up Joe, he spent most of the night screaming and shouting and speeding his way through a very uncomfortable address. To put it, well, charitably, jacked up Joe looked like an angry, over-caffeinated old man. Now, by the way, here are some of jacked up Joe's lowlights from last night. Last night, we saw a very different Joe Biden. I say jacked up Joe. I'm not sure exactly how many Red Bulls he had or whatever. What was your reaction to last night's jacked up Joe?
Well, I saw an angry old man threatening America to get off his lawn. Now, my brother would say he looked like he was jacked up on Mountain Dew.
Regular cognitive struggling Joe was back. Not jacked up Joe. Oh, what happened to jacked up Joe? I call him jacked up Joe.
Now, that was really poetry on the part of Sean Hannity to come up with that jacked up Joe. But I wanted to add, that was Horace Cooper who said he's like if America was, the president was an angry old man telling people to get off his lawn. And I'm like, wait a second. Who's your audience, Fox News? Who do you think your audience is? It's that person. It's that guy. It's the angry old man yelling at people to get off his lawn. I don't know if you're aware of that. You are aware of that. You're obsessed with your ratings, Fox News. I'm talking to that network as if they're a human being. But here we are. They know that their audience is a bunch of elderly people, mostly white, in the Midwest and South who are screaming at their television sets, who are living in fear at all time, filled with rage, fear, and paranoia at everything and anything. And they're yelling at people to get off their lawn. So I don't know if that's the best analogy to use in a negative way for Joe Biden. Just saying. Also, we're going to get to this a little bit in the lead, as it were. But last week, when Fox News wasn't covering either the State of the Union address or Super Tuesday, the network turned its venom and vitriol towards President Joe Biden while boosting former President Donald J. Trump. It's getting weird on Fox. The day after the State of the Union, several Fox News hosts declared, with no evidence to back their claims, that President Joe Biden was using some type of drug when he delivered his speech to the nation. Fox News often uses projection, which is defined by Psychology Today as the process of displacing one's feelings onto a different person, animal, or object. The term is most commonly used to describe defensive projection, attributing one's own unacceptable urges to another. If Trump or the Republican Party is accused of doing something awful, Fox News will manufacture or overhype an example, then accuse Biden or another Democrat of doing the same thing. Sean Hannity described President Biden as a jacked up Joe. The phrase jacked up appeared in the transcript 31 times over Thursday and Friday. Judge Pirro and Jesse Waters also echoed the same sentiment on the 5. Rumors have swirled for years that Donald J. Trump abuses the stimulant Adderall, and recently released Department of Defense Inspector General report revealed a pattern of improper medical practices within the White House medical unit. According to reporting by Rolling Stone, the White House was awash with controlled substances, including Xanax and the powerful stimulant Provigil. The physician to the president, Ronnie Jackson, allegedly would pass out pills like candy to various White House staffers. Ouch. Yeah, so I don't know if I'd be going there, Sean Hannity. I don't know if I would. So the shows I covered last week, this is epic. It was Fox and Friends, got all 5 first hour, and then on Super Tuesday I picked up 2 extra hours. So 3 hours on Tuesday, got all of the 5, got Hannity, 9 hours of coverage on Super Tuesday, and then the State of the Union commentary, which was about 2 hours. So now this is also pretty eerie. Sean Hannity said this the day before the State of the Union address. So again, this was on the Wednesday. Sean Hannity just dropped this gem.
That he's awake. His staff has been changing his schedule so he can stay up later than usual tomorrow night. And you know he's going to be pumped up with caffeine or whatever, maybe Red Bull.
So again, that's a little odd that he seems to be laying track there for what he's going to say the next day. Sort of planned it, I think, because that seems a little too suspicious. I was way behind schedule last week because I had to get all of Super Tuesday, and I got the State of the Union, and I talked about it in the last podcast. I was struggling to get the right recording for the State of the Union, which just wasted a ton of time. And as a result, I just got way backed up. And so when I was going through things, luckily, it's why I caught that, because I was like, wait a second, he said that the day before the State of the Union. So he was planning that, in my humble opinion. That's my guess. And that also, what happens a lot on Fox, magically, other people on Fox all say the same thing on the same day on different shows. Okay, sure. That's not coordinated. That's sarcasm. But anyway, he was careful to just say caffeine or Red Bull, which is Red Bull's just an energy drink. I love them. I only like a couple flavors though. And they got rid of pomegranate, and I'm mad. That was the best one. Now it's the strawberry apricot is the one I like. I think. I don't know. I just know by the can. I try new ones and I'm like, how dare you, Red Bull? How dare you? They made one this year that was apple fig that I just wanted to throw against the wall. It was so disgusting. But yet I drank it. Anyway, moving on. So yes, now our president is a drug addict in addition to being a cognitive mess and also being a mastermind. He's all of these things all at once. He's a cognitive mess who can't make it down the stairs, who has to use the baby stairs to the Air Force One, yet he's an evil mastermind and he's a drug addict. I mean, he's a lot of things. And he's the angry man screaming, "Get off my lawn," which I'm like, tip of the hat there. So next up, I put a couple of these together because I want to discuss I talked about it a little bit in the last podcast, the uncommitted vote, which was basically some voters in Michigan came together and they said, we want to show the president that we're not happy with his policy about Israel and the Israel-Hamas war. We don't necessarily want to vote for Trump or stay home, but we want to show the president that this is a problem, that we're very worked up about it. So they got together and they organized this thing called the uncommitted vote. And I personally think it was a brilliant success. Even if you don't agree with these people and you hate what they're standing for, whatever, you have to admit that this worked out very, very well for them. So they went ahead and did it, and the numbers came out. It was like 13%, I believe, in Michigan voted for uncommitted. And what's so brilliant about this, and I say brilliant, is even though they didn't probably realize this, they handed the Biden campaign just extraordinarily useful data. Because normally a campaign would pay a lot of money to figure out exactly where they're having problems, like what county people aren't happy. Now they know. Dearborn, Michigan, they got a problem. And Dearborn's not actually a county, but Dearborn is a area of Michigan. And I looked it up, it's in another county, but they have a problem in Dearborn, Michigan. They have a problem in Minnesota, and they can find with pinpoint accuracy down to numbers of people where they need to do outreach, where they need to figure something out here. And what you saw was this week, Vice President Kamala Harris came out and said, yeah, we need to have a ceasefire. And she said, we've got a major problem in Gaza with this humanitarian crisis. Biden also addressed it in the State of the Union and is proposing, and apparently they're already starting to work on this, or starting the whole process of building a temporary port outside of Gaza that would help get more aid in by sea. So, and he's been I think it's fairly obvious in the press that he's been feuding openly with Bibi Netanyahu about what to do with this horrible situation. And of course, Fox News is seeing this as a weakness, like, oh, look, uncommitted, right? So I'll play the clip. The first is Dana Perino, and the second is Hannity. They're 2 days apart. I believe Dana Perino said this on Wednesday, and Hannity said it on Friday. And then I got to work. I'll explain.
The Biden team's out with a lot of swagger because they're saying that Nikki Haley took all these votes away from Trump. And there were some, right? There were some, of course. But he's losing all these other votes to uncommitted. And actually, it's not just about Israel. It's about him being too old to run for office.
He has not. Joe can't even unite his own party, let alone the country, losing tens of thousands of votes to uncommitted, the uncommitted option in the Democratic primaries on Tuesday night.
Okay, so when I said I got to work, I immediately went online and was like, can I find the total number of votes per candidate and figure out what the percentage is of Biden or Trump versus other? And I'm going to take all the other candidates on both parties and just combine them and put them all under other. Can we just see what that number is? Couldn't find it anywhere. And trust me, I looked. So I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make it myself. So I started a spreadsheet. I made a list of every single state that had a primary or caucus. Now, this gets weird because some states split it and they'll have a Republican caucus and then they have a Democratic primary and all this kinds of weird stuff that goes on. And some of the states also split the dates. They'll have two primaries, but they have, again, Republican on one, Democrat on another. So it's not even, but it doesn't matter because I didn't go by numbers of votes. I went by percentage. So I went through this entire process of just looking up every single primary or caucus and writing down the exact number of votes for each candidate. And this gets a little weird because in each state, some states it's really easy to get on the ballot, and some states it's very difficult. So, in like New Hampshire, for instance, I think it was like a dozen people on the Democratic side. You know, people who were getting just a few hundred votes each. Kind of weird that they'd run for president, but whatever. And then in some states, you just see like Nikki Haley, Trump. It really depends. Didn't matter. Every single vote got counted. And even on the Republican side as well, which I found this interesting, this didn't get any press, also had a section fairly decent size for uncommitted. It was like, really? In some states, it was like 3%, 4% uncommitted. And I was like, that's shocking. So anyway, all of the votes that were not for Biden or Trump per party got added up. And I did the math, which that part's fairly easy. It's fourth grade math. Trump, so far, is getting 72% of the total vote. The rest is going to Haley or another candidate or uncommitted. Biden is getting 86% of the total vote. So that's much, much better. And out of that 14%, that's not all uncommitted. Some of it was Dean Phillips, some of it was Marianne Williamson, and some of it were just these random people who ended up to get on a ballot. Also, just as a side note, there have been far more Republican primaries than Democrats. So if you look at the total number, you'd go, all these people voted for Trump. So, the number is so much higher. Well, it's because in several states on the Democratic side, the primary is going to be held late March, April. So it hasn't happened yet. So there's nobody to vote for these people. Now, moving on, we have one of our favorites here at Decoding Fox News, and that is Miss Kellyanne Conway. Everybody knows her as Miss Alternative Facts, as she is most notorious for defending one of the dumbest lies of the Trump administration, and that was when Sean Spicer tried to say that Trump had the largest crowd for his inauguration in history, or something like that. I don't even remember the exact lie, but it was basically like he had like overwhelming numbers at his inauguration, and yet there's all this evidence that wasn't true. And this was very early on, of course, in the Trump administration. And she got on television. She's like, well, it's just alternative facts. It's just alternative facts. It's my bad Kellyanne Conway. She's got a slight New Jersey accent. And she just, it's alternative facts. Alternative facts. And she's got this mild way of speaking. So I just realized I haven't done it, and I got to do it for the fans. But that's a clutch your pearls, clutch them tightly to your sternum or your collarbone, because things are rocky. I'm just shocked and amazed. What is clutch your pearls? Well, that is when somebody gets very, very upset about something that Trump does all the time, and this is or the Republicans in general. And this is a perfect example of that, because Kellyanne Conway is is horrified by how other Republican candidates have spoken about her dear leader, Donald J. Trump.
I gave him the advice, I would just give it to him. He knows how I feel. I always say fewer insults, less insights. Having said that, he has a right to defend himself. The Republican primary opponents this time got pretty rancorous and personal in their insults of President Trump. And he has this effect on the people running against him. You saw Hillary Clinton's favorability ratings plummet. You see Nikki Haley's numbers going down. I think that people saw Ron DeSantis or maybe even Chris Christie as perhaps an alternative, somebody that was going to be positive and unifying. And they ended up being attack. But I like the fact, and I just want to say this, in 2016, he won in Michigan and Wisconsin among the 5th who did not care for him or Hillary. He beat her by 20 points in Michigan, 40 in Wisconsin.
Conway. Super Tuesday special coverage, Donald Trump, Nikki Haley.
I don't think they were cutting her off there because of anything she said. I think they were just running out of time because she wasn't saying anything that they would be upset about. But that is so hilarious to me when she was like, they got rancorous. And I'm like, rancorous? What? Trump was ripping on Ron DeSantis almost as soon as Ron DeSantis entered the race. And Ron DeSantis, to his credit, or probably because he wasn't that strong of a candidate, depending on how you look at it, Ron DeSantis did not fight back. He waited way too long to fight back, in my humble opinion. But Trump was just mocking him, making fun of him. He's made fun of all of them, pretty much, except for people he didn't view as a threat. Like, I don't think he ever made fun of Vivek Ramaswamy. But, he openly mocked Chris Christie. And, when he ran against Ted Cruz, he called his wife ugly, said his father was, some type of criminal. I mean, give me a break. And what's so disgusting about the Republicans is they just go ahead and kiss the ring when it's done. It's no self-respect. Ted Cruz. Is there a spine at all in you? Or are you just power? I don't care. Gotta be a senator. The Weasley little man that he is. How do you live with yourself? I kind of did a Gollum, Lord of the Rings kind of reference there without really planning it. But when I think of Ted Cruz, I just think of a really like a troll kind of I'm Ted Cruz. I'll say anything to stay in power. Really? He mocked your wife. Oh, that poor woman. Anyway, and for Kellyanne Conway to get mad about that is just please stop, lady. Please stop. Please stop. Anyway, next up, this is one of my favorite clips of all time. It's one of my favorite clips of all time. It is so perfect for Fox News that when I saw this, I went, if I had a Hall of Fame, this would be in the Hall of Fame. I watched this over and over again and laughed every time. So I'll set the stage. This is from a Breakfast with Friends segment. They had Will Cain in kind of a sad-looking diner in Allen, Texas, and he's walking around, working the room with his mic. And Fox always hypes these up so their biggest fans come out and they'll get up at 3 a.m. to sit there because we're in a different time zone here. So in order to appear live on camera at 6 a.m., it's 5 a.m. wherever they are. And Lord knows when they got up, to set everything up. So these people are sitting in a diner acting like they're eating with plates that have probably been sitting there for 2 hours as Will Cain works the room and is like, what do you think? And they're all like, we love Trump, we love Fox, is usually what you get. But because it's live, you never know what you're going to get. So at this point, they're really hyping up this absolutely ridiculous statement that Michelle Obama had to give out because the right wing just keeps insisting she's running for president, despite the fact that she's always said she would never run for any public office. And this is what happens in the diner.
Now that Michelle Obama's not going to run for president, they're making that announcement this morning. Will you ask, is there a woman in there that we can get her reaction?
Yeah, right here. Let me introduce you. I remember her last name because who forgets a last name that is Tax? But I don't remember your first name. Paula Tax. So NBC just reported that Michelle Obama has said she will not run for president.
Thank God.
Okay.
Yes.
Ainsley said, I would love the reaction from a woman in the crowd. And
I wouldn't vote for a woman, and especially, Nikki Haley. I'm just going to say this. She's probably menopausal. We don't need that.
Okay. She said, how about we vote for people regardless of their gender, just the right person for the job for America.
So the reason why I fell over laughing wasn't just the fact that woman, made an absolutely crazy statement that he did not anticipate, but that he just turns to the camera and completely lies about what she just said. And I'm like, this is the most Fox News of Fox News clips I've seen in a while. That was absolutely brilliant, because I went, what the heck are you talking about? She says she's probably menopausal and we can't have that. And he turns and says, okay, she said, how about we vote for people regardless of their gender? Just the right person for the job, America. No, that's not what she said, Will Kane. She's a crazy person, and you gave a crazy person a microphone, and she's proving Hillary Clinton was right. You're a bunch of deplorables. I'm sorry. Oh my goodness. I could not stop laughing. And I also think this is just as a woman, and I'm not 25. I won't say how old I am, but I was born in the 70s. Oh, and by the way, today is my birthday. And so I will probably, because last week was so horrific for me. The workload was just, I can't even describe it. I'm probably just going to go to the Museum of Modern Art and look at a Van Gogh, and then get some vegan barbecue and not post anything on Twitter, and be really backed up tomorrow and be feverishly trying to catch up. But I don't care, because I'm going to smash my computer if I don't get out of this apartment. It was really, really rough. I won't say how old I am. But anyway, of a woman of a certain age, I will say I find it hilarious when women who are much older than me bash other women, because I'm like, what is wrong with you? Like, what is wrong with you? It doesn't get easier for us as we get, some things get easier. Like, I don't get hit on by creeps all the time anymore. And there's no shred of me when they stop whistling at you on the street, you're going to miss it. I'm like, no, actually, I love this. I adore the fact that men do not follow me down the street, grab my arm, grab me, block my path, say creepy, disgusting things to me. I love this stage of my life. And for me, if I wear my glasses, people ignore me. If I don't wear my glasses, I still get the weird energy. So I wear my glasses as often as, I have to see a lot better in my glasses than contacts and readers. So I'm like, we're good. But anyway, I just don't understand it. I don't understand how any woman over the age of 45 doesn't embrace at least some aspects of feminism. Because man, it doesn't get easy. Like all those superpowers you had in your 20s, where you could just show up and be like, hello, I'm here, and people are like, hey, and they start talking to you and they're nice to you for no reason. That goes away as you get older. I've never understood women, especially I guess again, past a certain age, it really does hit you. Like it's hard. It's hard being a woman for a lot of reasons. I wouldn't think why you wouldn't want to like lean on other women. And the whole menopause comment is crazy, because like I'm not there yet myself, but I know plenty of women who are. And actually, once you hit it, it's much easier than the period before you hit that. So what are you talking about? And just a gross thing to say, and a rude thing to say, and a misogynistic thing to say out of a woman's voice. Very sad. So next up, we have Lawrence Jones. This is, again, the deplorable edit, sort of, who he says something so bad that even his co-hosts were like, yeah, dial it back. And this is Fox and Friends. This was on Friday. And he's referring to the incident in the State of the Union address where the glorious, that's sarcasm, Marjorie Taylor Greene interrupted Biden's speech.
Second thing, I am so sick of him always comparing the death of his children. Anytime there's an American that is tragically killed, he has to stop doing it. He doesn't know what it feels to have an illegal kill his child. And he's never met with any of the angel parents as well. So
now, Ansley Einhart and it was Johnny Joey Jones who was co-hosting, and Brian Kilmeade all kind of were like, whoa. Because it's really gross what Lawrence Jones just said there. If you don't already know, most people do know this, that Joe Biden lost his first wife, Nelia Hunter Biden, when she was only 30, and his infant daughter, Naomi Biden, in a car accident in 1972. And in 2012, his son, Beau Biden, died from an aggressive form of brain cancer at the age of 46. And there is some debate. I looked into this, and it's impossible to prove, but Beau Biden's cancer might have been caused from toxic chemical exposure due to burn pits when he served in Iraq. And the medical community is still sort of debating that. Some experts said, oh, we don't have any data that supports that. And the cases of that specific type of cancer are the same as the general population. I don't know what to think. I'm just throwing that out there because that does get mentioned a lot when Beau Biden's death is mentioned. Lawrence Jones is a very young man and does not have children himself yet. And it's interesting because I've met people who are 22 who have incredibly rich old souls who are, just even though they don't have as much life experience yet, you'd never know it. They're incredibly empathetic towards others and have knowledge and wisdom. So you can't just say it's age, but that just is a huge sign of immaturity on his part. Just like, how do you not at least just, I'm sick of him mentioning his dead sons. You sound like a sociopath. So I also want to address the term angel family, which he mentions there. I looked that up because I wasn't sure where that came from. And that is a term that Donald J. Trump apparently invented to describe families who've lost a relative due to something an undocumented immigrant has done, including a car accident or a murder or something like that. So, quite sad. But yeah, I had no idea that Trump actually came up with that. That's one that if he said he invented, he's actually not lying. This next, I should give out a shout out to my sponsor very quickly as I realize I'm about midway through. So who is my sponsor, you may ask, if you're new to Decoding Fox News? It is the listeners of this podcast and the readers of my Substack at Decoding Fox News. I also have paid supporters at my Patreon. All paid subscribers and paid supporters get exclusive content that is not available to the average person off the street. And that can vary from week to week, month to month, what I can offer. And if you cannot afford to become a paid subscriber, it's only $5 a month on Substack. Share the podcast, share the newsletter, that always helps. And if you want to give something to the mascots, because that's pretty much all that's on my wish list at this point, on Amazon, that Amazon wish list is called Decoding Fox News. And at this point, it's a bunch of cat food. Because even the treats all got bought up, and I'm like, I don't have a place to store this stuff. So I'm done with the treats. But thank you so much for everybody who got them treats. Every time I give them their treats, I think of my supporters, and it's so great, so wonderful. Now, when I posted this next clip, people actually thought it might be a joke. Now, Victor Davis Hanson is sort of one of these old school, just grizzled, I don't know how old he is exactly. He has a PhD in the classics. And he is at the Hoover Institution, which is on the West Coast out of Berkeley. And he is it's like a think tank, super ultra conservative. And he said some really wacky things since I've started this project. Some stuff that I would just say straight up racist. But this is Victor Davis Hanson. Again, Fox loves him. They have him on all of their shows. Hannity especially loves him. He's on Ingram. You don't see him on Jesse Waters because I think he's too intellectual for Waters. But I've seen him pretty much in everything. And he's considered this like great mind. And when I posted this, people actually thought it was a joke. He's talking about Donald J. Trump. I should preface because he just uses a pronoun at the beginning. So just set this up. He's talking about Donald J. Trump.
He's shown he can be magnanimous. He's got a sense of humor. He's got to end the ad hominem. He's now our last chance to save the country. And he's got an obligation to all of us. And he has the ability to seek unity. I think he should even call up Nikki Haley and say, you know what, we've had problems, but we're going to need you. He needs those votes. I know it doesn't make good politics, but he's got to campaign in 50 states. He's got to go into the inner city. He's got to go to Mexican-American communities. He's got to everybody. And I think he will do very well if he does that. And he's a different character, of a different stature in 2016 and 2020. This election, Sean, is about you're either for civilization or you're not, from what we've seen. And he represents that effort to save civilization. It really is that existential. And I think he can do it. All he has to do is appeal to unity and the better angels of our nature and unite the country in a way that I think he's got the talent to do it.
I mean, I could do an entire podcast just on that clip. There's so much to unpack there. He has to appeal to the better angels of our nature. Donald J. Trump? What are you talking about? He should do rallies in the inner city. I would actually love to see that. He keeps he keeps teasing that he's going to do a rally in New York. If he does, it'll be in Long Island or something. There's no way he's going to do it in New York City, because that would not end well. No. He would the ratio of counter protesters to fans of Trump would be terrifying, and because it would be very unbalanced, and I cannot imagine that would go well. That would not go well. There would be people like just screaming the whole time at him. The whole time. This city hates his guts. Like, no, you don't want to come to city. If he does it, it's going to be like Long Island or Staten Island. It'll be Staten Island where there's actually Republicans. Anyway, and then he says, bless Staten Island. I have friends that live there. It's not all Republican. And even if they are, whatever, I don't care. But it's just, I don't mean to diss Staten Island, but that would be the one place he'd go. But the other thing about is that he's going to save civilization. All right, Victor Davis Hanson. People pointed out that the books behind him, he had a bunch of books behind him. I didn't even notice this because I'm so used to him, that the titles were all like the end of, the final days. Like they were all incredibly negative. And again, that clip is on Threads. That clip is on Twitter. I'm probably going to put it on Instagram because it performed really well. I only put a handful of things on Instagram and TikTok just because it's a lot of work to put them on. And stuff doesn't perform. The stuff that performs well on Instagram is the jokey stuff. And again, I say this all the time. If you want to see some entertaining cross-talk, check out the comments on Instagram because they always get lively. I don't pay attention to them at all because I can't. It's just too much. But then occasionally I'll get these updates and I'm like, oh my, because these people just go straight for each other's throats. They're like, shut up, you stupid loser. And it's like, this is hilarious. You brainwashed idiot. It's fun because I'm not involved. So that's why I find it funny. Okay, next up we have Karl Rove as the voice of reason. Now, if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably a bit of a political junkie and you know everything I'm going to tell you right now. But I want to give a little bit of background on Karl Rove because I think his arc in terms of the Republican Party and Fox News has been really kind of tragic and kind of also funny. So Karl Rove, in his heyday, at his height of glory, he worked for George W. Bush when George W. Bush was president. And he was sort of his like right-hand man in many ways. They called him Bush's brain. So he was viewed by many, again, at his peak, as ruthless and vindictive. Many of his critics accused him of using underhand tactics and of spreading disinformation. He went on to become a senior advisor for G.W. Bush and became an integral part of policy and decision-making. After helping Bush win a second term, Rove was promoted to deputy chief of staff. Then it became under increasing criticism for his alleged roles in several scandals, including the leaked identity of a CIA agent, Valerie Plame, and the firings of 8 federal prosecutors. Their dismissals were seen by many as politically motivated. Although he was surrounded by scandal, Rove never faced criminal charges and resigned from his White House role in August 2007. So, now that the Republican Party has lost its freaking mind and gone way off the deep end, Karl Rove has turned into this odd, like, intellectual man with a whiteboard who shows up on Fox. Nobody really pays attention to him. Nobody listens to him. He's like this quaint kind of, oh, that throwback. We'll let Karl... He's humorous because he's got this whiteboard and he's kind of fun to watch, but they don't treat him with any reverence. And the fact that on Super Tuesday they had Jesse Waters go on and say, I put these 2 clips together in my Twitter thread, but Jesse Waters goes on and he's, Jesse Waters, he's got the brain of like, is there anything going on there? I don't know. Who cannot handle self-checkout, admittedly openly brags that he cannot handle self-checkout at a grocery store. Can't do it. It's too difficult. And he goes on Fox and he says, the Republican Party's never been more unified. And then just a few minutes later, they have Karl Rove on who does this segment. So I'm setting it up for you. He's got his little whiteboard. He's got all his numbers written on it. And I'm just sitting back going, here we go.
We see in the in these states, a third of the vote in Virginia. 43% of the vote in Massachusetts going to Nikki Haley, a quarter of the vote in North Carolina. Maine has now dropped down to about a quarter of the vote, but it was 31% for Nikki Haley. Vermont, 48%. There's still some work to be done to unify the Republican Party, and that's going to depend a lot on his tone tonight and whether or not he stops doing things like calling her bird brain and threatening that if you give money to her campaign, you're going to be permanently banned. Well, first of all, stop the bad language, because you're right. Ron DeSantis offered him his endorsement. President Trump had kind words to say for him. Then there was a leaked report of supposedly DeSantis off the record saying things in a private meeting that were disparaging of the former president. And the president's co-campaign manager, a terrific guy, a personal friend of mine, went out and said, all we're going to remember about Governor DeSantis is chicken fingers and pudding lips. And that's just not the way to go about doing it. J.D. Vance, one of the former president's big surrogates, put out a statement saying, if you are not being supportive of Trump and his and the candidates he endorses, don't bother showing up on my doorstep and asking me to help you on legislation. I have a long memory. Well, that's the kind of thuggish thing that most politicians, even if they believe in keeping enemies lists, they don't go out and say it in a tweet. And yet that was one of the president's, the former president's strong supporters, the junior senator from Ohio. That stuff has got to stop.
So I remember the G.W. Bush days and how people cursed this man's name, and he was feared and he was mighty and he was, all powerful. And now he is relegated to this old eccentric man with a whiteboard on Fox News that nobody listens to. And, he knows what he's talking about. Trump would benefit if he actually listened to Karl Rove, but he won't because he can't be criticized. And this is not part of the podcast, and I'm just sort of riffing, but the fact that the RNC caved and let Trump put his daughter-in-law and his other lackey as part of the co-chair people of the RNC, and then they just fired everybody in the RNC, and they have to beg to get their jobs back. And he's like, oh, I won't waste the money on my legal problems. Are you out of you did this to yourself. You are committing slow suicide. And it's, oh my goodness. And Karl Rove's another one. He would be, if they gave him a modicum of respect and listened to him, he'd be a formidable foe for Democrats. Instead, he's just this guy who comes on Fox. It's just amazing how the mighty have fallen. It's not his fault. And I'm not defending Karl Rove. I'm just saying that what he said in that clip, yeah, that's all true. They're not listening. They're not listening. Because he also, in one of the other primaries, he said basically the same message of you're in danger. You're in danger, girl. You're in danger. Nobody listens. They don't listen. We're going to follow Trump right off that cliff. Hopefully that cliff won't take the whole country with it. This next one is a bonus clip. I couldn't fit it in the newsletter, but I can fit it in the podcast. It's a very short clip. Jesse Waters, his brain is made of Swiss cheese. I have no idea what's going on here.
And with Dana's permission, I'd like to make an analogy. Donald Trump is like political helium. He keeps rising and rising and rising. But he's also combustible. And everyone's worried about when's he going to pop.
So I'm really confused on what he was trying to say there. Because I'm like, Jesse Waters, if you're going to start an analogy with saying something is like something, like he's like helium, you can't then immediately pivot and change the quality of helium in the same analogy. It doesn't make any sense. So you can't say he's like helium and that he rises, but he's combustible and no one knows when he's going to pop. That would be hydrogen, you idiot. Hydrogen is the flammable gas that's lighter than air that floats. The Zeppelin. Who listening, when you were a little kid and you found out about the Hindenburg disaster? I did. I thought you might also die in a fiery wreck of a Zeppelin. I'm laughing because as a little kid, you honestly thought that was like a possibility that I would be on a Zeppelin ride and it would blow up. And then I'd be in this inferno of metal and a balloon blowing up, a ball of fire, anyway. But I actually thought, like, I'm going to die in a Zeppelin because Zeppelins were cool and look at them. Anyway, but like, why are you talking about helium and then combustible gas? It doesn't make any sense. And it's like saying like something's like water, but it's fire. What? No, you have to stay with the analogy. Like that didn't make any, stay with the thing. What are you doing? I posted that and like a couple people said, but he said, but I'm like, yeah, but it still doesn't make any sense. Cause it's like saying he's like a cat. That's a dog. What? No, you just switched. What are you doing? Does he think that balloons will explode and not like pop? He said combustible, and it just hurts me. It hurts me. And then like a lot of people who are dumb but they think they're smart. This is you know what I'm talking about. This is a quality, and you can be dumb and be a wonderful person. I have friends that are not intellectual who are lovely, amazing human beings. They're not going to sit down and talk politics with me. I don't care. I love them. But, you don't have to be smart to be a good person. I want to just clarify that. But Jesse Waters is not a good person. He does horrible things, says horrible things, and he's dumb. I haven't done her in a while, so I feel like I need to for the fans again. And there was a segment this week that involved Oreo cookies. And I was like, are you kidding? And of course it was Judge Jeanie. And she was bringing out the Oreo cookies. And she also, this past week, had a moment where she was like, all of this yelling by Biden, I couldn't believe it. And I'm like, oh, have you watched a clip of yourself, Miss Pirro? Have you watched a clip of yourself ever? How does your sound person not have damage to their eardrums? Like, how do they not have, like, what do they do? Do they take the headphones and just place them on a table next to them so they can hear you and hear your levels? Because there's no way you're not piercing their actual skull. I don't know. And yes, the Katie Britt spoof on SNL is very, very funny. If you want to see that. I don't watch SNL. I don't watch anything, but I see clips of stuff. That's about all I can manage because I'm working constantly. But the Katie Britt impersonation that Scarlett Johansson did was hilarious because that whole like Joe Biden and the weird tonal shifts that she kept having that was just spot on. I watched that again, and I did put another clip up where I realized she said, precious. And I isolated that, and some people got the reference, and thank you if you did. Yeah. Precious. Anyway, it just, because she did say slaughter. There's another word that Katie Britt used. She said slaughter, and then she said the blood of patriot, soaked in the blood. These were all quotes from the actual monologue. All quotes. Katie Britt. And then she goes on like the shows the next day, and she's like, I'm Katie Britt. How you doing? I'm totally normal, and I'm going to talk normal. Like, okay. Instead of talk, I'm losing my voice because I've been doing this too long. But anyway, I can't keep doing it. But anyway, we're going to move on to stories Fox News ignored. Every week, I compare the hours I've watched on Fox News to this past week, 27 hours. I watched on Fox News to 5 hours of the PBS NewsHour. And even though I watched 27 hours, you'd think this list wouldn't be that long, but it is as long as it ever was. We're going to start with updates in the war in Ukraine. Ukraine said it sank another Russian warship in the Black Sea using high-tech sea drones. The large patrol ship reportedly could carry cruise missiles and a crew of about 60 sailors. Russia did not confirm Ukraine's claim. The International Criminal Court issued arrest charges against 2 Russian officers for attacks on civilian electrical power sites and war crimes against humanity. The charges are symbolic, as Russia isn't a member of the global court, doesn't recognize its jurisdiction, and refuses to hand over suspects charged by the court. Updates in the Israel-Hamas war. A ship loaded with humanitarian aid left Cyprus headed for Gaza. The European Union president said that international donors launched a sea corridor to help with the growing hunger crisis in the besieged region. The ship plans to deliver food from World Central Kitchen, a U.S. charity founded by celebrity chef Jose Andres. Alan Weisselberg, the former CFO of Trump Org, pleaded guilty to 2 counts of perjury in the civil fraud trial involving Donald J. Trump and his company. He will be sentenced to 5 months in jail in April. Hardliners won a majority of seats in the parliamentary elections in Iran, while voter turnout was a record low of only 42%. Most moderate and reformist candidates were disqualified from running, which caused many Iranians to call for a boycott of the election. Lawmakers in France enshrined abortion laws in its constitution. Lawmakers from France's upper and lower houses of parliament easily passed the historic amendment last week. The European Commission fined Apple $2 billion over a complaint that the corporation was using its App Store to stifle competition with other music streaming companies. Apple is appealing the decision. China set its new economic growth target at an ambitious 5%, acknowledging that will be difficult to achieve. A new report from the CDC found a 29% increase in alcohol-related deaths from excessive alcohol use from 2016 to 2021. During this time, deaths from excessive drinking among males increased approximately 27%, and among females, approximately 35%. The Dartmouth men's basketball team voted to organize with the Service Employees International Union. It's the first labor union for college athletes and a blow to the NCAA. Liberty University agreed to pay a $14 million fine after the Christian school did not disclose crimes, including sexual assault, on its Lynchburg campus. The fine is the largest ever levied under the Clery Act, a law that requires colleges and universities that receive federal funding to collect data on campus crime and notify students of threats. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell said that the central bank won't begin cutting its key interest rates until, quote, until it has gained greater confidence that inflation is moving substantially toward its 2% goal, noting the move will likely occur at some point this year. The UN Security Council urged the warring militias in Sudan to halt hostilities during the Muslim holy month of Ramadan and allow aid to get to 25 million people in desperate need of food and other assistance. The UN fears the country could experience the worst hunger crisis in the world if the fighting rages on. According to the UN Migrant Agency, at least 8,565 migrants died on land and sea routes worldwide last year. It was the worst year on record since the agency began counting deaths a decade ago. So far this year, the CDC reported 45 cases of measles in 17 jurisdictions. The new outbreaks are due to a drop in vaccination rates. At least 3 crew members were killed and 4 others injured in the first fatal Houthi attack on a commercial ship in the Gulf of Aden. Sweden officially joined NATO last week. The country decided to join the defensive alliance after Russia invaded Ukraine 2 years ago. The U.S. healthcare system continues to struggle after a cyber attack on a payment processing center used by United Healthcare. The American Hospital Association calls the suspected ransomware attack the most significant and consequential incident of its kind against the U.S. healthcare system. Opening statements began in the involuntary manslaughter of James Crumbley, the father of a school shooter who killed 4 at a Michigan high school in 2021. Crumbley is being charged for his role in his son's crime after ignoring signs of his son's deteriorating mental health and purchasing the gun which was used in the attack on the school. Crumbley's wife has already been convicted on similar charges. The recent jobs report revealed that the U.S. economy added 275,000 new jobs last month. At the same time, the unemployment rate ticked up 0.2 of a point in February to 3.9%. It marked the 25th straight month in which joblessness has remained below 4%, the longest such streak since the 1960s. The U.S. military cleared its Osprey fleet to return to use with a new maintenance plan. The fleet was temporarily grounded after a fatal accident in Japan. A federal judge in Texas upheld a Biden administration program that will admit 30,000 migrants per month from Cuba, Venezuela, and Haiti on humanitarian grounds. Donald J. Trump posted a nearly $92 million bond in the E. Jean Carroll defamation case, which he is appealing. A UN report blamed Iran for crimes against humanity over its treatment of Masha Amini, a young woman who died in custody after she was arrested over wearing a headscarf improperly. The report also found that Iran committed crimes against humanity as it violently cracked down on the protests that followed Amini's death from 2022 and 2023. A federal jury convicted Juan Orlando Hernandez, the former president of Honduras, of helping drug cartels smuggle cocaine into the United States. He was also convicted of weapons charges. He could face as many as 40 years in prison. Viktor Orban, the Prime Minister of Hungary, visited the United States last week, where he met with Donald J. Trump, but no members of the Biden administration. Orban rules Hungary like an autocrat, as his opposing political parties are suppressed and elections are rigged to favor his ruling party. Orban is a strong ally of Russian President Vladimir Putin. In the UK, the government is planning new legislation to punish extremists responsible for rising tensions because of the war in Gaza. The government has cited increased hate crimes and threats of violence against Jewish and Muslim communities. Akira Toriyama, a popular Japanese anime artist, died of a subdural hematoma at the age of 68. He was best known for his Dragon Ball series, which achieved worldwide success. And those are all the stories. You'd think they'd get at least some of the stuff about Iran in there. They did not. Now we move on to By the Numbers, where every week I compare the top 5 topics on Fox News to the top 5 topics on the PBS NewsHour. I always pick PBS because it's straight down the middle, nonpartisan, high-quality news. We're starting with Fox. Number 1, 31%, presidential primary. 16%, the State of the Union address. 8%, Biden bashing. 7%, the Supreme Court case that basically said states cannot say that Trump won't be on their ballot. That was 7%. And then just blatant shilling for Trump. 6%, which I'm just calling Trump 2024. And those are segments are exactly what you'd think they were. They're just blatantly shilling for Trump. There's no like commentary, or they're just like, he's amazing. That's it. So for PBS, the top 5 topics were, they were doing a lot of recycling of old segments last week that were about like artists and stuff that's like kind of evergreen. I think because of the heavy duty lifting of dealing with Super Tuesday and the State of the Union address. So last week on PBS, number 1 topic was artist profile. And again, that's any number of artists that they profile. It's a huge thing that they do on PBS all the time. Moving on to the Israel-Hamas war, which was just slightly under 9%. Author profile, that's people promoting their books. That was 8%. Presidential primary, also just slightly below 8%. And then the State of the Union address was 8%. There's a lot of coverage on that. And then words used on Fox for the week ending March 10th, 2024. Trump, 1,166. That's crazy. Biden, 970. Border, 430. Haley, 347. Economy, 153. Crime, 114. Migrant, 103. Israel, 79. Inflation, 66. Ukraine, 49. Hunter, 36. China, 34. Jacked, 31, as in jacked up Biden. Iran, 14. And AOC, as she always does, made the list at 5. And that's the podcast. If you want to support Decoding Fox News, you go to my Substack for Decoding Fox News, Patreon for Decoding Fox News. You can also share the podcast, share the newsletter. You can find Decoding Fox News at X, formerly known as Twitter, Threads, Blue Sky, YouTube for Juliet Jeske, TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook, also Juliet Jeske. And the podcast mascots, Thor and Odin, also said their love. There's also a version of this podcast on the Resolute Square YouTube channel. They have all of the Lincoln Project, Resolute Square podcasts that are now also available on YouTube. And that is it. Put a fork in me. I'm done. I will see you at the next podcast.
Resolute Square.